we're good over there. You good? Yep. Okay. Okay, we will call to order our EDA meeting here this morning. It is Thursday, February 8th, 2024, 7:30. And would you please call the roll?
Bevins.
Here.
Beezer.
Here.
Grasula.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kirsch.
Here.
O'Day.
Here.
Sandy. Yeager.
Here. Okay, first item is our annual meeting here. This is, we're going to kick this off with just a really quick president's report, and then we'll get to a review of the bylaws, and then finally an election of our president, VP, and our secretary. So I'm just going to jump in here real quick, give you a basic highlight of what we were able to accomplish in 2023. January, we held, of course, our special meeting to approve the consultant agreements, and had a presentation from the consultants for their work from the previous year. In March, we held a second special meeting for the Deed Main Street grants. That's our initiative foundation, and we allocated about $765 grand to Brainerd to be used in the River to Rails corridor. And of course, the EDA was the authority that made the recommendations on the funding for that. Subcommittee was made up and built and recommended 33 projects for funding, and most of all of that money has been obviously put out and kept track of and is out there doing its good work. So that's awesome. We appreciate the help from our other partners on that. We also established some priorities with that money, with that 765, which was housing, landscaping, lighting, and then childcare, small business. The EDA also held a workshop for further economic development, Brainerd's revolving loan fund and facade improvements, mixed-use development in the commercial corridor, and extending the River Rails District to all commercial corridor properties. In October, we approved the final logo, slogan, and design work for our website, and then SHC presented some concept plans for the industrial park, the Wright Street extension, and that was accepted by us, the commissioners. In December, the EDA approved a local income funds to demolish a blighted property. We're partnering with Habitat on that and the HRA, and so that's an exciting thing moving forward. Happy to have HRA on board and Kevin at the Habitat. And let's see, Visit Brainerd showcased the preliminary website along with SHC's website depicting the available properties for sale, concept plans for downtown parking lots, industrial lots, and so forth. And then we asked those partners to work on helping to create a cohesive website. EDA, most of us, I believe all of us were there. Yes, we took a tour of the Lexington manufacturing here in December. And then also we ended up the year kind of solidifying the consultant contracts in December. So busy year, proud of the work that we did, and I appreciate all of your guys' effort and time in this, as well as our partners in-house, partners out-of-house, all of us working together. So much appreciated. Any thoughts, anybody? Any comments, questions? No? Okay, we're going to go to a review of the bylaws. James, hit it.
So this would just be an acceptance of the review of the bylaws. No major changes presented this year. Last year we did make some changes to that. So if anybody has any thoughts or anything like that, certainly could bring that up. Otherwise, it'd just be accepting and reviewing the bylaws.
Anybody have any? Go ahead.
Nope, I've got a motion when you're ready.
Hit it.
Move to accept the review of the bylaws.
Second, Johnson.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we have our bylaws. All right, the next item here is our election of our president, our vice president, and our secretary. Before we start, is there anybody who does not want to be a president, a vice president, or a secretary? Gabe Johnson. All three or any?
All three.
All three. Gabe's out. He's out. Anybody else? Okay, we have Kelly's, all three also?
All three.
Kelly's out. Mr. O'Day, you're out as well? All right, all three? Okay, very good.
I'd prefer not to be president.
Okay, and we have Tony, who would prefer to not be president.
I have a motion.
Okay, very good.
I would motion to keep all officers as is were in 2023 for 2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a, can we do this in a motion, or do I have to actually call for nominations? Anybody?
I like the motion.
I like the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Anybody would like to, or any of the current officers would like to have any say on this motion?
I'll just add a discussion point. I think we've accomplished a lot in the last few years. Last year in particular, we started making actual progress, I think. And in the nature of maintaining what we did with our subcontractors or partners, whatever you want to call it, I think keeping it the same for another year is smart.
Okay, yeah, works for me. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, I think we can do a roll call on this one? Or we can do a voice vote. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, looks like we have our people. And yeah, let the record show that we have Mr. Sandy in-house now. All right, so we're going to move on. I didn't think I was going to be doing this today, but that's great. I'm just going to keep rolling here. Next item is number 4. This is the approval of the agenda. This is a voice vote. Do we have a motion or any thoughts? Do we have a motion on to approve?
Second.
Kelly.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. We have our agenda. Number 5 is consent calendar. This is a notice to the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the board and acted upon by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion to be adopted by roll call. This includes item 5A, approval of the minutes, 5B, financial reports, 5C, Swanson Hascamp report, 5D, DDBC report, and 5E, visit Brainerd report. Do we have a motion
Move
to
approval, Johnson.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Bevins.
Yes.
Beezer.
Yes.
Grasula.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Kirsch.
Yes.
O'Day.
Yes.
Sandy.
Yes.
Yeager.
Yes. All right. We have an approval of the consent calendar. Item number 6 is our unfinished business. First item on our unfinished business is the review of the website designed by Visit Brainerd. James, okay.
Yep, so unfortunately, representative from Visit Brainerd is unable to attend today, out sick today. I did receive an email kind of outlining some things that could be done in the next couple of weeks. So staff will provide a link to the updated website. It's been continually worked on and content has been added. So Mary would like to have a review by the commissioners to essentially see if there's any type of things that want to be changed, added, removed from the website, take feedback. So staff will provide that link tomorrow to the commissioners.
Very good.
Yeah, with that, there's also a marketing video that's going to be released with it at the end of February. And I know Jennifer has been working with Mary to kind of create that cohesive website as well. So that's something we'll be discussing in the consultants meeting that we have this afternoon, is kind of putting that final touch on the website and getting that rolled out at the end of February here.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Kramvik. So it sounds like we got some homework. When we get that, and when you guys see that in your inbox, give it a look and come back with any feedback the next time we are able to meet and discuss. With that, we'll move on to item number B. This is the approval of the.
I just have
Please.
a question. Since it is going to be released at the end of February, when do you want our response back, if we have
So
any?
I would say within a couple weeks.
Okay.
That would give Mary kind of the final week to get things touched up and finished up. So I would say within 2 weeks after review of the website by the commissioners.
Excellent point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, 2 weeks. Okay. Item number B. Any other discussion? Sorry, before we move on the website. Okay. Item number B. This is the approval of the contract with Camp Real Estate Development. Are you setting this up, James?
Yeah, I'll just do a
Please.
quick introduction here. So at the December 7th EDA meeting, the commissioners heard a proposal on behalf of Camp Real Estate and Development for professional brokerage and listing services for multiple properties owned in the city of Brainerd. The proposal detailed brokerage rates and the compensation in the event that the land is sold for $1. So the commissioners directed staff to work with Camp Real Estate and Development to draft an agreement to present at the February 8th EDA meeting. So with that, I'll have Jennifer talk about that. I believe she may also have some signage designed to look at as well.
Thank you, James. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So the contract, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go into it too much. It outlines the terms that we discussed at the last meeting, including how the compensation structure would work in the event that we do sell a property for $1 or $1 an acre or whatever it ends up being. You'll note that I think it's attachment B or 2, whichever one it is, that it notes on it that essentially the way it would work is we would get an appraised value of what the land is worth. That would then be what the commission is based on. That commission then would be the responsibility of the buyer to pay. So they're getting it for $1. there's a small real estate brokerage fee that seems pretty reasonable in terms of you're getting land for $1. So in the event that it is sold at market rate, then the proceeds of that sale would actually be paid, that would be used to pay the commission, which is a typical real estate contract. So other than that, I think it's fairly straightforward. It outlines exactly what we discussed. It's a 12-month term. And then the commission rates were as we discussed at the last meeting. So with that, I can answer any questions about the contract. I figured if you don't approve the contract, then I'm not going to show you the signs because I won't be listing them. So I figured we'd go contract and then I'll share the signs with you.
Very good, thank you. Do we have any?
I have a question.
Yes,
How
Ms.
long is this contract?
12 months.
All right.
I did have one question, and it might be for James. Did the city attorney look at it? It looked pretty straightforward, but did we have?
Yep, he did review it, made some very minor changes that Swanson, or Camp Real Estate also approved once he reviewed it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion.
Yeah, well, one sec. I just had one quick question, just confirming about how the appraisal works. So who actually hires the appraiser, and what if there's a disagreement on the appraised value?
So oftentimes the buyer will do it. Sometimes the seller will do it. In this case, because we're going to have a unique situation, we can work that out as a part of the agreement, whatever the purchase agreement looks like. Usually that will also outline in the event there's a discrepancy between the appraised value, how it's going to get resolved essentially.
And who pays for the
Correct.
first appraisal, second, and potentially a third
Exactly.
appraisal?
Right.
Okay.
So that would be all a part of whatever goes into the purchase agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, Mr. Bevins. Sorry?
One question here. Thank you, Mr.
Yes.
President. Looking at the properties, we have the TC Drive properties, we have the Wright Street extension, and you have the parking lot infill redevelopment, but it looks like you only have one of the 3 parking lots?
Correct. So I had messaged James. I wasn't sure if we wanted to add all the other 2 that we had looked at, or if this is the one that is obviously attached to here, the larger parcel. It's up to you. That's an easy thing to add. It was one of those things where I wasn't sure if you wanted to actively market those other 2 parking lots yet, or if we wanted to start with the larger one. Obviously, from a redevelopment perspective, this is the one that is more desirable because it certainly could fit more than the other 2, but we're open to however you'd like to address it.
So the City Hall parking lot is the one listed here?
Correct.
Not the
Correct.
other 2? Okay.
Correct.
I'm fine with that. I'm just pointing it out, so we're aware of what we're doing here.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Now.
Anything else?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, please.
Now that you brought up, Mr. Chair, the valuation, you can always start on the Crow Wing County website. Every one of these properties has valuation, and you may laugh.
I am going to laugh,
Right?
because she's not going to like that.
I understand that, but that's what everybody does. If you haven't done it, you will. Go find out what your neighbor paid for his property, when it was sold, what these things are valued at. So, I mean, it is available. I'm not suggesting that we would definitively use that, but that's almost always where people start, especially when they're buying a property. So
Buyers love to start there.
buyers love that one.
That is true.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion when you're
Please,
ready.
I'm ready, sir.
That we enter into a brokerage agreement with Camp Real Estate and Development LLC as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion to enter into agreement. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a couple seconds here. I would give it to Mr. Grasula. But any discussion? All right. Yes, please.
Sales aside, I think the major thing is we're actually actively marketing these things for the first time ever, and we just want to get rid of them. All the other details, in my mind, are just details. So I'm
No
happy with
pressure.
doing this.
No pressure at all.
All right,
You
got
got
it.
a year.
You got 12 months.
I'll see what I can do.
Taking 125 years so.
Oh, goodness. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Very good. We have a contract. Thanks. We're looking forward to peddling some property. That'll be good.
Perfect. So in that case, then I do have signs for you. to
Let's
just
see
say
'em.
Some rough drafts to go for. So the way that we have this structured is essentially you've got one larger overall 4x6 sign, so 4 feet by 6 feet. That will represent the larger parcel areas. So in this case, the 46 acres, it's big. Then the idea is we're going to do some lot markers, especially on TC Drive, but also here to give people a sense of what's north, what's south, and what's included. So in this case, here's the overall for the TC Drive property. Obviously, the idea is to make sure people know it's for sale, which we haven't done so far. So that'll be a step up. What the zoning is, however, actually, if you go back to this one, however, that you're open to possibilities of what could go in here, even though it's zoned industrial, what the parcel sizes are. And then on the bottom, we've got the brokerage service, but we also want to make sure that the EDA is representative and identified so that whoever is interested, if you're driving by the sign, you know who you're supposed to contact, and either one of us works. And then we have a QR code that we're going to put on it that will bring you to the actual page so that you can download all the information. So pretty straightforward, trying to keep it as clean as possible, but also keep an overall aerial on it also in terms of the large map. So then if you go to the next slide, these are the lot markers. So these would be about 1.5 by 2 feet in dimension. They will be placed at each lot within the development so that it's clear what you would be looking at. Once again, the QR code is here, so you can scan it. You'll be able to go and see the information. And then also that is being represented by both us and the EDA. So pretty straightforward. The idea is to keep it as clean as possible, but also make it clear and easy for folks to figure out, A, how to get more information by themselves if they want, which is the QR code, and who they could contact for more information.
Excellent. Well done.
like it.
Yeah, me too. Anybody have any thoughts? Yes, please, Mr. Sandy.
I think it would be helpful if we had on these signs that public utilities are available.
Sure.
I think that's a very important part of these parcels, and that they were constructed in a way that allows for very readily available utilities, power,
Yep.
internet, and, the basic
Easy
amenities.
to add. Happy to
Yep.
do that.
Yep.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, on top of that, that's a perfect point, Paul. And the TC Road in particular is a shovel-ready development. The stormwater, everything's already done. So including that could
Yep,
help a
absolutely.
developer understand it's ready to go.
We'll make sure to add that on also the 4x6, because obviously that's the one that people are most likely to, it'll grab their attention because it's so large. So, yep, good
Any other thoughts?
suggestion.
Excellent. We don't need a motion on this, correct? We're good to go? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to item C. This is a discussion of the potential salary range, job description, and experience for the EDA chair. I'm sorry, I mean the Economic Development EDA Director. Please, Mr. Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the Brainerd EDA continues to grow in yearly objectives and budget, there should be a consideration for a full-time economic development manager or director. So staff has provided a job description and potential salary ranges for a manager or director as directed by the EDA board at the regular scheduled meeting in October. So this year, the EDA levied for $186,812 in 2024, the EDA elected to fully fund all 5 contracts with the consultants for a total of $138,000. So with that, staff did do some research on a couple potential options and what that would look like. So staff did see economic development managers as a potential, overseeing the EDA operations. There's also economic development directors. So the manager would probably more so not be a department head, but kind of answer to the community development director. I did see that in some cities, but then they're not, kind of a standalone department head that would solely answer to the EDA. With that, there's a couple salary ranges as staff included on there. The development manager, because they're not a department head, and a director, paid slightly less. Staff did include the loaded salary ranges as well as the salary range. And then the economic development director, you can see also the salary range for steps 1 through 6, as well as a loaded salary range. Staff researched what other communities kind of pay with our size, and then looked at our city wage grid to see kind of where they would be placed within that as a potential option. So with that, staff also included a job description for review, everything that an economic development director may do, as well as some of the qualifications. At this time, because it kind of reaches the, almost the level of what the EDA levies for funds. Staff does not recommend going at this point with an economic development director next year, but it's something that should probably be reviewed yearly or by every 2 years, just to see where the EDA is at with funds, what they're levying for, as well as what the market rate for an economic development director may be. But at this time, because there's not much of a cushion there between what the EDA levies for versus what an economic development director would make, staff is not recommending it this time, but certainly could answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Gramvik. Any questions, thoughts? Yes, please.
I was just curious, just looking at what other cities do, is it typical that they just use levied funds to cover the salary, or kind of what other funding mechanisms are there for basically funding that position? And then again, just kind of thinking of what other cities do for their EDA directors, is it like usually a full-time position where that's what they're solely focused on, or do they like have any sort of shared roles where you could cover their salary with, say if they're like a city employee and they're doing other work for the city to kind of cut down that full salary amount? I just don't know, like, for the scope of work of what they would be doing if they would have a full-time position. I mean, I'm sure we could give them enough work to keep them busy, but just wondering, kind of what other cities do and how that's broken down.
I would say in most cities of Brainerd size, it's typically the community development director or the city administrator taking on that role. So, maybe Tyler can add to that a little bit, talking with some other communities.
Yeah, typically a city this size wouldn't employ a direct economic development, an economic development director. It is, as James mentioned, it's usually responsibilities. I think it's probably in your job description somewhere on the manage and handle economic development activities. It's pretty uncommon. What you see across the state is county-wide economic development directors. It's most cities, you'd have to probably start exceeding 50,000 citizens in a city to have an active economic development director. And in those cases, that is an employee of the city. It's not run through, they don't levy for it through their EDA. It's a city employee. So it's pretty uncommon for a good example. The one in Alexandria is their economic development director is funded by the county, the township, and the city. So there's a mixture of that, but typically a city this size wouldn't have one.
I saw in Fergus Falls, I did see the community development director kind of heads it, but then they also, I think the EDA pays some funds for an economic development administrator, so somebody that takes in and does some administrator roles as well. So I don't think that's a full-time position. I'm guessing they do other city work as well, but there's some shared work there as well.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I think these salary ranges just show us how bad Failerty and Hood did us on their compensation study. What? I looked around, and yeah, it is usually bigger cities that hire a direct, but you look right now, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, some metro towns are hiring economic development coordinators that answer to the community development director, and that's more in the $50,000 salary range, 50, 67. It's not $113,000 plus benefit. Tyler doesn't make $113,000 plus benefits.
I would probably apply for that job.
So we could do something other than this. I agree with staff's recommendation. I don't think we're busy enough to require a full-time employee, but if you look at Minnesota Code Section 469, an EDA can hire an employee and set the terms and compensation as they wish. So we could hire a 10-hour a week at $12 an hour executive director if we wanted, which I don't think we should. But these salary ranges are quite high, in my opinion. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just say, I think we still want to keep exploring it, so I definitely don't want to put this on a 2-year rotation of looking at it again. I don't know if we're just discussing it our workshops are coming up, but I want to keep tabs on it to make sure we're, just moving in that direction. But I agree that it doesn't make sense at this time.
Yes, please.
I think as we have the money spread out right now, it works best for what we're doing. We have a bunch of property that we want to get rid of. And in an ideal EDA for what we are right now. We would just meet to decide if we want to sell properties to certain people that want to buy them. Until we're done with that, I think we could start looking at other options on how to manage this EDA, but for now, we're trying to sell property and trying to come up with programs that are manageable outside of that. So if somebody were to be hired after we get rid of all of our property that we want to sell, I feel like that's what they would be doing. So along with what Johnson was saying about having more of a coordinator that wouldn't be stepping on the toes of the community development director, I think that would be, at that time, what we would be looking for. So whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, I'm not sure. Maybe we get there, but I don't think we're there yet.
Anybody else? Yeah, I'll just chime in here. I'm along the same feeling here. If we hire somebody for whatever it is, 50, 100 grand, we owe it to the taxpayers that they're going to somehow earn that money back and put it back, some source of revenue that we can go to the taxpayers and say, look, this was a good buy. This was a smart thing to do. I'm not convinced that we could do that at this point. I also have the leaning of, if possible, I like the idea of hiring an outside consultant for this position versus putting them as an in-house Brainerd employee for a couple of reasons. Number one, you can set that contract for a yearly review. If we don't like what they're doing, we can get rid of them. As we all know, it is very difficult to get rid of city employees if we don't like what they're doing. So there are companies, people, firms out there that do this type of work as a consultant, not necessarily as a direct employee of which at that time, maybe then we start, putting the feelers out there, ask some people to come forward and say, hey, give us a proposal. What do you present? What does this look like? And then we can evaluate the money and they can, form some version of a value to that money, and then we can look at it that way. So that'd be my leaning versus a true employee, but I think we're all generally in agreement here. You don't need a motion or anything on this, do you? Okay, very good. Anything else? Great, moving on, we'll go to our new business. This is 7A. This is to direct staff to work with Bladeck on a revolving loan for facade improvements. Mr. Kramvik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the June 28th workshop, staff recommended offering grants for business owners remodeling facade elements of their place of business at a rate of 50% of the project cost up to a maximum of $2,500. This was modeled after what Detroit Lakes is currently doing right now. So after discussion with the funds that the EDA has available versus what might create the biggest impact for the city, I think there's kind of a general consensus that the commissioners were more interested in potentially a revolving loan fund because that funds would be paid back. It'd be a no interest or maybe low interest loan that would be provided. But then at that point, you could maybe do larger projects in, maybe in the range of $20,000. And that's something to still consider what that would look like. Staff did include the funds that would be available to use. I'll maybe let Connie talk about that here.
I think you did a good job explaining it in the packet. I can answer any questions if commissioners have it.
Any questions? Connie? Okay.
Well,
Yeah, please.
I did read through this at one point yesterday, but I haven't looked at it since. In general, what is the total that we have of funds that we can use towards this?
Let's see, there's about 150, almost 200,000 that we could use. I mean, there's different options, like the local income funds that has a balance of 79,000. Those are developed from small cities grants that the repayments are less than $35,000 a year. There's no repayment on it, it just has to be used for a federal objective, which would include eliminate of slum and blight. You have the internal EDA funds. This year we have budgeted revenues exceeding expenditures by about $43,000. And then you also have fund balance available. And then the downtown revolving loan funds, those are small city grants. There would be reporting on those. Those probably come with the most restrictions. It has to have a study in so many years, and then we'd have to report that to the small cities.
Right, so that was kind of my question was, there are some different restrictions on different types of funding here, but they all could be used for facades.
That is my understanding, yes.
The first two are probably the easiest to use based on Connie's analysis. Something I still want the EDA to consider, we did the 426 B Street project, so leaving a few funds available for that I think would be advantageous. That's something that staff continues to work on with the HRA, letting them know which blighted properties we have, which ones are maybe vacant, so, and we let them reach out to potential property owners. So that's something staff would like to continue with as well, with that partnership with the EDA, or with the HRA. So that's something to consider as well, but staff would like direction to start working with Bladec, and I'll let maybe Tyler talk a little bit what that may look like.
1 second. Mr. Bevins, did you have something?
Yeah, I did, but maybe Tyler's gonna answer this.
Very
And
good.
that was just briefly, and I'll ask it, and maybe you can answer it in your presentation. Since we initiated this grant program in June, have we had any, besides the B Street where we tore the house down, have we had any applications?
So it hasn't been initiated for a revolving loan fund. It was talked about at the June, you're looking at potentially getting something set up, but this would be direction for staff to begin working with Bladec to come up with some type of contract or agreement on what this revolving loan fund may look like for them to administer it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Mr. Johnson?
All first.
Mr. Sandy?
We know what, like, so that, where did that $2,500 number come from? Like the max of 2,500? Because I feel like $2,500 doesn't get you very much nowadays.
You paint.
Half an awning.
That's because
Maybe.
you're an
Exactly,
engineer,
so-
Paul. That's
That,
because you're an engineer.
you know, that might,
All engineer costs are high.
That's the retainer, just to get started.
that was one of the few actual grants that I found rather than loans. So my thoughts there were, you know, if you're just using fund balance or excess money that the EDA has, that could be potentially used for something like that. You're looking at, you know, probably awnings or, you know, kind of minimal facade improvements, not a major redo of materials and structures with something like that. But as an actual grant, that was really the only one I found in a city of our size.
It was written in 1961. Yeah, please, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. So just to clarify here, we're not looking at a 50% grant, but a 50% loan?
Nope, so that was just a background to what was proposed at first. And then the conversations from there kind of went away from that grant and went to a revolving loan fund. So it wouldn't be, we don't know what the match might be at this point yet. It's something that we'd work with Bladec on to see if there'd be a match or, you know, what the maximum numbers may be. And certainly we can use some feedback from the commissioners today and you know, kind of getting the parameters set up to work with Bladec on getting a proposal
It's a
set
give it
for the
away
next
versus
meeting.
get it back over time kind of thing, right?
Yep.
That just confused me. I said, loan or grant?
Well, I think that's some of the, Gabe, I think that's some of the questions that we have to vet out. You and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, and whether or not it is, you know, what is the perception of taking tax dollars and turning them into grants, or taking tax dollars and actually making them revolve so that you can bring them back and keep the program like this moving. That would be my recommendation, is not just giving the money away, even if we put a matching component to it. You know, you guys saw what we did through the Main Street Revitalization Grant. There was, you know, some back and forth with regards to that and varying levels of how the applicant is going to match those. In a situation like this with these dollars, if you want them to keep coming back, and the interest rate is up to you guys. If you want to charge an interest rate, if you don't, that's completely up to you. But I think the purpose of this would be to make sure that this does continue to revolve. These dollars do keep coming back. So this isn't just a one and done type program. You know, you're not just putting this money out there and saying, we're going to make these improvements with these dollars and then the money's gone. I would like to see this as that these dollars, you loan these dollars out at, if it is 0%, you loan these dollars out, they come back in and you can continue to do good things with these dollars as opposed to granting them out and having them as a one-time use and they're gone. I would struggle with that.
Mr. Johnson? I'll get you.
So I'm hearing loan. I'm going to assume we're talking loan. Okay?
Yeah, I'm going to just ask real quickly, is there anyone here who'd like to make a case for the grant, just in the interest of giving good direction here for?
Well, I just say, speaking from what I've seen in downtown, the biggest impact has been that matching grant dollars that are going towards facade improvement. It's really been a struggle getting property owners to invest in doing facade improvements in downtown. So the fact that it's a loan versus a grant, if that offers any more incentive, I would say you're not granting out the money and not getting it back. You're you're getting economic investment in your downtown when you're granting out the money and incentivizing making those improvements. So that's how I feel about it. And also just if we're going to be loaning money out or trying to get business owners as opposed to property owners invested in this, it's really a struggle as a business owner where if you don't own the building you're in, to invest money in a facade, if whether it's signage or an awning, you don't own that building, you're not going to see any benefit to your business apart from advertising your building. So as much as we can incentivize business owners to be able to make those aesthetic improvements to the spaces that they might not even own, I say that's there's lots of value in that. So.
Yes, please.
I haven't finished yet.
What's that?
I said I haven't finished yet.
Please, keep, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. So I'm hearing loan, but also I'm hearing grant, so I guess that's something to be decided. Looking at these three funding sources, I know staff said 1 and 2 are the easiest, and sometimes it's best to take the easiest path, but also sometimes it's best to take the smartest path. And looking here, if we use number 3, the revolving loan funds, little bit of work, little bit of reporting, but if we get paid back less than $35,000, that money gets washed up into number 1, which is the easiest money to use. So I think using option 3, the downtown revolving loan funds, if it's in the district and meets the objective, should be the priority of this money. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Yes, please, Tony.
Oh, I was just wondering, is there a reason why you can't do a revolving loan and a grant piece to it?
A lot of our small cities grants that we do, like what Marie was referring to, it's a grant or it's a loan forgivable over a 10-year period.
Gotcha.
And that's the way the small city grants have been developed in the past. Before it was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 grant, 1/3 loan, 1/3 owner's match. So they can be structured differently. So I'm hearing a lot of like what we do with the small cities grants. And if we use bucket number 3, I would really need the HRA's help to make sure that we're meeting the objectives, because there's income guidelines and all of that kind of stuff too. So I would need help to make sure that we're using those dollars correctly.
I just think if, going to Marie's point, like if someone wants to put the money in, if they know a piece of that loan they won't have to pay back, might encourage them to spend the extra money knowing that they have to pay something back, but just not 100% back.
And I have
James,
another
oh, sorry.
question. Sorry, I have another question. Marie, when you say the business owner versus the property owner, would these be for the property owner? Because how those grants become payable when the property is sold. So, if we're doing it to a business owner, how would we get the money back if they were to vacate the property or something like that? So I'm kind of confused if it would be a business owner
Yeah,
or.
I'm just thinking of, as part of the business competition I was in, I got grant money it went towards rent, not like facade improvement, but I had to sign a contract saying I would, be in my space for 5 years, and if I vacated before that, I would have to pay it back as a loan. So I'm just saying something similar to that. You still have to get buy-in from whoever's investing in the signage. You're not just handing the money with no consequences if they decide to turn around and leave. So yeah, just having those in place to help. I think it's a great way of incentivizing keeping businesses in their space for a long period of time, so.
And like I'm thinking of the small cities, when it's the owner, so it's basically a lien against the property, but we're talking, $20,000, not $2,500 too. So I'm just trying to think everything through and how it could be structured.
Sure.
Mr. O'Day.
So I can see the advantage to both. I would be comfortable with bigger projects doing a type of revolving loan where maybe you do 50% at 0%, 1%, whatever, something small, 75% where you have a little bit higher interest, and 100% where you have a little bit more higher interest. That's an idea. Maybe projects up to $20,000, $25,000. You're not going to get as many done. And again, to Marie's point, are you going to get any done? I don't know. If it's available, are they going to actually use it? I know we've had those programs in the past in this city, and it hasn't been used. So I get that part where we're risking just not doing anything at that point. But the grant situation seems to me like every couple of years that the state steps in and provides those. And those are usually state-funded grants or federally funded grants, and that's something that we can look for. And I don't know if staff has any knowledge of grants that we can apply for through community development or the HRA or anything like that. But I do feel like granting money straight up without any backing or safety valve like we were just talking would be something that we would look for from a higher level of government.
Anyone else? Yeah, please, Tyler.
So at the end of the day, grants are easy, right? Grants they're clean, they're simple, for the most part, they're simple, but it's a simple application. You're giving the money away. You're giving the money away, not expecting it to come back, which it won't because you're handing it out. I struggle with that just because these are levy dollars. A lot of these dollars are levy dollars, and I would personally think that it would be advantageous that they come back so you can continue to use them. You are right, the grants, they do typically cycle out every 2 years depending on, with the legislative sessions. There are some grants out there right now that are tied to some infrastructure needs. There's some housing grants and stuff like that out there, but there's nothing directly specific to what we saw with the Main Street grant, which was directed at downtowns and was directed at specific corridors of cities of this size. We may see them again, we don't know. I mean, but there's nothing out there currently that fits that. But with the direction from you guys around how you would like this to look, James and I can certainly work together on what this looks like, but loans are applications, paybacks, who's going to track this, who's going to, what if one goes bad? Is county going to run out there and track these people down? Or are we going to file liens? Are we going to, that's the other side of the loan process with this is that there's layers to it that might get a little bit more complex. We're okay with that, but just so everybody is fully aware of what this looks like. I think it's important that this money keeps coming back and keeps revolving, because as you levy for this every year and you can put more dollars into it, I think there has the potential to be bigger impact. I certainly see Marie's point with being the building owner or being the one that's leasing the space. Leasehold improvements aren't really looked at as anything that a business owner is like, oh, thanks for putting a new facade on my building. It looks great, but when you leave, it's still theirs. It's not yours. So there's some challenges, but I think it's something we can certainly work through with your direction. Just let us know the path you'd like us to start to venture down.
Very good. Please, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I don't want this to take too long, but so we're talking loan, maybe grant, but we're talking loan. How does this differ outside of the scope, the size of the area? Would this be different than the actual revolving loan fund that we do have downtown? Because in my 10 years, we've given out 2, 3, not many, but we've given out a few loans downtown. How would this program that we're talking about be different from the current revolving loan fund that we have?
One thing that staff is recommending is also you open up this whole area to also the 210 corridor and the commercial corridor
So
district.
just this scope of the area?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then, I think just kind of what Tyler's talking about, as well as Commissioner O'Day, maybe I'm hearing maybe grant, maybe loan, maybe the grant is a smaller number. We did attend a downtown meeting with members of the DDBC, and one thing that I know that they would potentially like to see is improvements in signage on buildings, awnings, that type of thing. So maybe something like that. You look at what DL did, that's about what an awning runs is in that 5,000 range. So, that might be a good program to administer a grant for businesses, but then the revolving loan fund would be maybe more property owners, new windows, that type of thing that's more of an expense. So one idea there.
Can do both.
Mr. Sandy.
I was just gonna say, I agree. I don't think we have to pick one necessarily. I think we can go both directions, and maybe what James just said is the right answer. You have a smaller pot set aside for some grant money for the stuff that's eye-popping.
Right.
And then like the actual structural windows, big dollar items that you know, someone should probably take a loan out for, maybe that's what you have this bigger pot of money set aside for.
Right. Where my mind is going is we probably have a fairly robust email list of people from the deed program and other interested parties. Is there any way we can poll or survey this before we start the momentum going one direction to just see what the appetite is for the marketplace versus grants versus loans? What is going to attract the people more? Is there any way we can do that as a preemptive step to maybe attack this a little more intelligently?
Sure. Yeah. There's actually I would. I'm part of a statewide group that is all the county economic development directors, but there are also the city economic development directors that are on this, and we have constant communication that goes around asking these very specific questions around what is your city doing? Have you done this? What is this? What do those steps look like? I'll take that on, President Yeager, and decide how to come back, and I can bring back to the next meeting just what other communities have done with these types of dollars, and is there a method to this kind of madness at the end of the day?
Very good. Mr. Johnson?
I'd rather not know what other communities are doing. I don't care. I would like to see a recommendation, concrete. Is it loans? Is it grants? Is it a combo? What should we do with the limited amount of funds we have to help our city? Just my opinion.
Yeah, Mr. O'Day.
I'd like to say if we're going to use some of it for grants, I'd like to keep the amount of granted funds lower than what we're adding each year, so that we're not dwindling funds. We're at least maintaining, you know, something like if we have, what is it, 38,000 left over from our budget, 40,000 left over from our budget, keep the grant money somewhere in that 30,000 range.
James and I, that's exactly what we talked about, was setting that limit in terms as you laid it out. It was our very conversation around how do you, with some of the grant dollars, and how would you use those?
And you could have it specific for paint,
right,
or replacing siding, smaller projects like a sign, things like that.
Making your fence level.
Leveling of the fence.
What?
I think no matter what
Cars
we
will
do,
try to do that for you once in a
one
while.
of our most important parts is just going to be how do we get this out to the public so people just know about it? I mean, that to me is.
Have a
gonna be-
website.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we're gonna have some
Kevin,
new tools.
I don't want to, but I will. I'll pat myself on the back. We're pretty good at that. We've been doing this for a while on how we communicate and get this information out. We had great response, obviously, with the Main Street grant, all of that information. So my concern wouldn't be is how do we communicate it. It's just a matter of narrowing down the scope of this, as Commissioner Sandy said too, is get a couple of, let's look at both of them and let you guys decide which one or makes sense, or is it a combination of both? We can do both.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, please.
I have a question. Once we agree on what we want to roll out, how quickly can it go out? I'm just trying to think of timeline and schedules of contractors in April. If you start thinking about it in April, it starts
Done in October.
to get tight. So my question is, how quickly, once we are agreed, how can we get this out quickly so that they can get on the dockets of the contractors or what they need, so it's not pushing into the winter months?
Yeah, so I'm seeing timeline is, you know, we'd be bringing this back at the next EDA meeting, after me and Tyler talk about what those things may look like based on the conversations that we've had today. And then at that point, maybe the EDA makes some tweaks on how much money is funded to each one of them, make some tweaks to that, and then essentially have that ready.
So you're thinking April?
Yeah, it'd be
We
after
can
the
turn it on
April.
pretty fast. Once the guidelines are set, we can turn it on pretty fast.
But then there's the timeline of getting it out there and once they decide, so that might be
Yeah.
May, June before they decide, and then trying to get on a docket of somebody's schedule. Like, that's where I'm starting to get nervous of we can get it out, but then they have to think about it, and then they have to talk to someone about it. That just adds on to the timeline.
In all of these, especially grant applications, the window is typically not longer than a month. So you will turn it on, you have a month to apply, and this group can make decisions pretty quickly on who they want to fund, or if we set parameters into place where we don't have to bring it back, you're guiding staff to say this is, if someone comes through and it meets the criteria, just get the grant out and get moving. So there's a few different directions we can go, but I think once the guidelines are set, we can move pretty fast. It's not but again, grant windows, even loan windows, I wouldn't keep them open for longer than a month. You're just delaying the inevitable at that point.
And I know,
Mr. O'Day.
I'm not sure if Tony, if you're suggesting, but are you suggesting a special meeting to
Potentially.
push this forward? And
Yeah, because I just want to get it moving out for everyone quickly as possible.
typically, we're every other month right now, correct?
It's true.
We could do it at a different time, have one item. I would be okay with it, but that's up to the rest of the group.
In my opinion, go ahead. In my opinion, it's not necessary. I mean, I understand the the workforce. I work in that area. Aside from paint, most all of the work is not weather dependent. It could be done in the colder months if it's dragging on. But my leaning would be not a special meeting to gain that 1 month. But I could go either way. I could be convinced either way.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
I was just gonna say, it doesn't seem like we're moving this along very fast right now in a meeting, so if we held another meeting, like, we would just sit and talk in circles for now. We should get a proposal and say yes or no, my opinion.
At the next meeting or a special meeting?
At the next meeting, yeah.
2 months, right?
Sounds like
2 months from now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, it sounds like we have some direction here. Do you need a formal motion on this, Mr. Kramvik? But is there anyone want to add anything?
I would say a motion to direct staff to work with
Anybody got one?
Bladec on a grant revolving loan fund.
So moved.
Is there a motion and a second? Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, very,
Grant and revolve.
there we go, yes. Okay, well, all right, where are we at here? We're gonna move on to the review of the preliminary framework for 2024. Mr. Kramvik?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff did, same as last year, provide a framework for the EDA to review. Took a look at the consultants' agreements to list out what could be accomplished with each quarter. Some of the big staff priorities from the next year is going to include the revolving loan fund, as well as the commercial corridor district. So that is, I think, in the list of ordinances to work on based on council and EDA recommendation is, I think, we're looking at probably starting that midsummer. So potentially allowing mixed-use development in the commercial corridor district. It is on the priority list of the Planning Commission. And then the other one that staff will be working on as a big priority is potentially extending the River to Rails district to the entire commercial corridor district. Right now, part of the commercial corridor district is in the River to Rails district. This would kind of extend it out to the Cub Food area. So those are probably the main priorities. Some of the smaller ones, it would be continuing to do the consultant meetings. One thing I know that we're going to have to figure out is how content is updated, who adds it. So that's going to be a big thing that all the consultants are going to be working on. But with that, I can certainly answer any questions. We're going to, and right now I have a preliminary where this is one big thing that we'll be reviewing this afternoon in our consultant meeting is kind of getting this finalized, and I'll present a final one at the next EDA meeting.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kramvik. Any questions for James? Yes, please.
I just would like to see, so I just struggle with the way stuff is worded because it's a goal, but I see the goals as being more like activities. A goal is like measurable, and I would just like to see some measurable like metrics or just performance indicators added to each of these, what we currently have labeled as goals. So when we get our annual report, we can see like where were we last year, where are we this year, so we can see what direction we're moving, because that's kind of what I'm struggling with is just not having a clear sense of like we're doing all this work and I know we're making progress on things, but just having some numbers tied to that, you know, how many jobs were created, how many new housing units do we have, how many new childcare facilities, that sort of thing. So that if we're looking at each of these, what we currently have labeled as goals, what are the measurable things that we can be tracking to see where we're at and where we're going?
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Need motion on this? Nothing?
Nope, just wanted to see if there's any comments or, anything to add to it.
Yeah, please, Mr. Johnson.
I agree with Marie. I think we should have measurables and track our progress better somehow. So, just there's that.
And I think I can provide, a report on that from what we did last year at the next meeting.
Okay, thanks, James. All right, with that, we're going to move on to staff reports. We'll start with you, James, please, if you have anything.
I guess the one thing to add is City Council did approve the tax abatement agreement with Country Manor, as well as the final PUD with that. They are expecting construction to begin construction sometime late summer. There's a potential that it could move into next year if certain bids come back, but right now they are planning construction late summer.
Excellent. Thank you. That's exciting. Well done, all of the people that have been working on this for so long. Connie, do you have anything? Mr. Charpentier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of updates. We've talked about 426 B Street a little bit on that redevelopment project. So we did, by the end of the year, get that home demolished, back to buildable grade. We are now working with Habitat to get a purchase agreement ready for that with an anticipated build in 2025. So we're excited about that. If you haven't taken a chance to drive by, it looks a lot better with it being gone. Much better in that neighborhood. Second item, just kind of another update, general update on 805 Laurel. So we've been waiting for the state program, for the Workforce Housing Loan Program to be released for that RFP. Finally did get released at the end of January. That is open now until April 30th, so DW Jones will be working towards getting an application submitted for that for a large portion of their project, with the idea or the hope that the funding will be released sometime, or at least appropriated by sometime in June. So we'll know a lot more as we come in the next few months. Coupled with that, DW Jones is also applying for funding through the Crow Wing County HRA Housing Trust Fund, and that will be coming in front of that board very shortly. So we are starting to put the pieces together for their final funding and hopefully get some momentum here heading into the spring and summer period. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Charpentier. Tyler, you have anything?
Just that we did address that Main Street at the beginning of the meeting during your report. Those projects are still moving forward. As you know, that when they had up until November 1st to get their projects significantly started. Whatever that really looked like from Deed's lens is pretty wide open, but all the projects are moving, and that was I think the one last outlier was the Thrifty White property out there. But yeah, we still the contractors or the business owners are still bringing in receipts, and we're still filing them through the Initiative Foundation to get things funded, and don't see any concerns or issues with it at this point. But again, they have 3 years to complete this, so we'll be dragging this along for a while. But it's working just fine.
Thank you, Tyler. Mr. O'Day, you have anything?
Nothing to add today.
Casula?
Nothing.
Mr. Bevins?
Yeah, we hired a city administrator.
Woo!
Yep, he starts the 26th. Nick Burrows is his name, from Spearsfish, South Dakota, and we're really excited.
Excellent.
So that'll
Excellent.
be good.
Ms. Kirsch?
Yeah, just wanted to point out we have some new businesses moving into downtown. The newest, the Good Village tea shop is moving into where Fancy Pants was. But yeah, for me as the bakery, looking across the street and having 3 storefronts filled is really exciting. So if you haven't been downtown recently, come and see what's new down there. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Beezer?
Nothing.
All right. Ms. Sandy? Ms. Johnson?
I've got 2 things, Mr.
Please.
Chair. One, on the Deed Main Street, the Brainerd Restoration submitted their plans for a bench, but the city council decided they were going to micromanage the installation of a bench. We've got 3 years. We're going to go back and forth with them for probably forever on how we think benches should look, but we got 3 years. Hopefully that'll get done. And I talked to Mayor Badeau yesterday. He was into Giovanni's Pizza down in the industrial park. And he took an impromptu tour and said it was really cool inside. So I think we should add that to one of our tours this year if we could get the EDA into Giovanni's Frozen Pizzas and see how the pie is made. Thank you.
Very good. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Nothing else. We're looking for a motion to adjourn. We got a motion, a second. All those in favor? There we go. Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Under an hour again.